Thanks a lot for coming out.
Thanks. Thanks for Rob for inviting me. Like he said, I'm going to talk about Windows Embedded some, the background, when it would make sense for you to use it, some of the challenges of using it, kind of like the process of building your image, and then looking at what's some tips and techniques from the embedded world that we could apply to just our retail Windows OS, which is more relevant to the hobbyist community. And I'll also talk about some tips for testing and deploying your images, whether they're embedded or for retail Windows. So just some background on myself. Like Rob said, Silvio Fiorito. I've been an MP3 car forum member since May of '04. And I really got interested in the community around optimizing Windows, and then flash devices, which at the time solid state disks were way too expensive. They were really for the embedded market. You're talking about thousands of dollars. So I started looking into like compact flash, USB booting, just because I was just curious. I was curious to see, would it be possible to get XP to run on these extremely small devices? And that's how I got involved in Windows Embedded. At the time it was XP Embedded. And then I eventually posted the guides on the OS optimization forum for enhance right filter, hibernate once, resume many, and min logon. And like Rob said, I've worked on an MP3 car project using Windows Embedded. And some of the stuff that I posted on the forums made it into the Car PC Hacks book. The chapter, I believe, is called Embedding Windows. So just some background on Windows Embedded. It was formerly called XP Embedded. They did some rebranding about a year and a half ago. It's based on XP, but obviously XP was not designed to work in that manner of basically taking bits and pieces. So and the latest version is based on XP Service Pack 3. So basically the embedded team at Microsoft, they went around to all the various teams, probably hundreds of teams around Microsoft, and said, we want you to help us build a component, a singular component for the product you develop. So, Internet Explorer, Windows networking, drivers, the Explorer interface, all of those things they had to go through and make those into components. So, there's different levels of components. There's the low-level components, which are like your services and your drivers. And then there's the what they call macro components, which are like the Internet Explorer, which pull in a lot of different smaller components. And each component has dependencies, obviously. So, Internet Explorer depends on networking. It depends on the HTTP or the HTML rendering engine. And it defines registry entries, file settings, and all of that stuff, so that when you pull that component into your image, you can actually define, it can actually build that just like it would exist on a regular XP. They also provide obviously patches for security updates and any new things that come out with subsequent releases. And it's available through embedded distributors. The MSDN academic license, so if any of you are students, you may be able to get access to it through your university. Or there's also an MSDN embedded license for developers. It's not yet part of BizSpark. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of BizSpark. It's Microsoft's kind of hobbyist program, but it's really focused on Windows CE. And you can basically get the Windows CE tools free. You just buy like a development board from one of the embedded distributors, and you're allowed to create non-commercial Windows CE images. Unfortunately, they haven't included Windows Embedded Standard, which is the XP version, in that program. I've communicated a number of times since back in 2004 with Microsoft that it would be great to have a hobbyist license for Windows Embedded, but the team members themselves have been receptive to that, but probably management hasn't really caught on, and they probably don't really see the hobbyist community as a big market for them. Any questions? So I'll quickly go over the architecture of Windows Embedded, so how it works. So there's a component database that basically holds all the different components that are available to you. It runs off of SQL 2005 or later databases. It can be local or remote. There's the database manager, which allows you to configure some settings in the database. The component designer, which is what you use to create custom components. So if you're creating a component for your front end or for driver packages that aren't in the base Windows embedded product, that's what you would use. And target designer is how you actually create your images that you're going to deploy. And the component repositories, it's just a file share. It can be local or remote, but it's always referenced by the network share name. And that's where all the binaries are stored, all the DLLs, EXEs, etc. And then, of course, there's the target device, which is the embedded device that you're actually building this image for. And basically, these are the three different deployment models. So you can have development tools, your component database, and your component repositories separately. This is really more for if you have like a full embedded development shop when you're going to have multiple developers, or you can just have it, a two-tier architecture, or you can just have everything on a single machine, which, for most single developers is probably the way you're going to do it.
Can you just slide over something?
I'm sorry.